Welcome back. A twin-engine aircraft operated by Nepal's Tara Air has lost contact with officials. The missing aircraft had 22 people on board, including 4 Indians who hail from Mumbai. They're all members of one family. The aircraft also had on board 3 Japanese nationals, 3 crew members. According to officials, the flight took off at about 9:55 this morning and immediately after lost contact at about 10:07 a.m. The flight from Pokhara was scheduled to land at Mustang's Jomsom airport. Speaking exclusively to India Today, Nepal Aviation Minister Prem Bahadur said that army choppers have been dispatched to trace the plane. Airlines are also pulling in all their resources to ensure that they can scan through the entire area at the soonest. So far, there's been no update with regards to the search operations. I spoke earlier to the Nepal Aviation Minister Prem Bahadur and also the spokesperson of the Nepal Police on the search operations. Here's that conversation.
आज प्लेन 9:55 में पोखरा से टेकअप हुआ था।
Okay.
10:07 में उसका कांटेक्ट ही नहीं हुआ। 10:07 में अभी हम लोग यहाँ काठमांडू रेस्क्यू एंड सर्च सेंटर में बैठे हुए हैं। इसका पता लगा रहे हैं। इसके लिए आर्मी का हेलीकॉप्टर भी गया है, सिस्टम एयर का हेलीकॉप्टर भी भेजा गया है सर्च करने के लिए।
सर, क्या आप कंफर्म कर सकते हैं हमारे लिए कितने लोग थे फ्लाइट में?
इसमें 19 लोग यात्री थे और 2 पायलट, चालक दल के 2 पायलट थे और 1 एयर होस्टेस, 22 लोग थे।
The flight of the Pokhara to Jomsom, the Thai Airlines, early in the morning, about 9 o'clock, but it's 10 o'clock. From 10 o'clock, the Tara Airlines have been missing. The Nepal Police and the Nepal Army is searching the area which is suspected for any incident happened in the Mustang region. But now it's not finding any more information about the missing plane.
Sir, so you're telling us that at least for 2 hours now there's been no contact with the plane, correct?
Yeah.
Information trickling in on the passengers on board. There were 4 Indians on board that Nepal plane, and the information we're getting is that all 4 Indians are from Mumbai. In fact, it's one family. These 4 members of a family. There's 4 Indians from Mumbai. It looks like they were on a holiday, but that is something we'll ascertain. The rescue operations are being delayed because of the tough terrain, and this is something that several experts as well as the officials we spoke to did confirm. Operations currently are underway. Nepal Army personnel, we're being told, are now moving on foot through this very difficult terrain, through the mountains, to try and find any sort of hint of exactly where this plane is. We've spoken to, in fact, the Tara Air spokesperson as well about the situation currently, and we will be putting out the details of what the airline also has said. So the search operations still on, 4 hours and counting now since the last contact was established with that plane. This is a 25-minute journey. Within 10 minutes of the flight taking off, it's gone and lost contact, and they're hoping for some information on the whereabouts of this particular plane. Rescue operations and search operations are extremely difficult, keeping in mind the weather as well as the terrain conditions. A lot of choppers that have been deployed in the area. The Nepal Army personnel, now we're being told, are also moving on foot to try and hopefully gain some more ground. And let's get you this conversation with the civil aviation expert Ajay Prakash. He said that all procedures should be followed religiously in order to ensure safety of passengers.
It is very challenging terrain, but the Nepal and the Nepalese pilots and Indian pilots as well have been looking and operating in these regions. It's still very sad, and our hearts go out and our prayers for the people on board and for their families. But, it is when things like this happen that we are forced to rethink how much we take civil aviation for granted. Yes, it is indeed one of the safest modes of transport, but when something happens, that's when it hits home that safety measures training, all the procedures, the systems to be followed, how rigorously they need to be followed in order to ensure passenger safety.
Conversation that we had with the aviation expert. On your screens is the first footage that's emerged of the search and rescue operations that are currently underway. There are in fact choppers that have been deployed there. The Nepal army has been roped in. You've got in fact private airlines, private players all stepping up, also deploying their resources to ensure that they can cover that entire area as soon as they can. With the kind of terrain, this is literally within the Himalayas, in the midst of these peaks, that the search operation is happening, which is why you can only imagine the kind of challenges that go with this kind of an operation. What we're also showing you, the first images of what looks like perhaps the crash site. We don't want to jump to any conclusions, but the pictures on your screens, which we've accessed from our local media partners also in Nepal, seem to indicate that they seem to have kind of at least found some parts and bits of the plane. We're all keeping our fingers crossed, praying for survivors, is that the search operations are still underway. So we'll await a final word from authorities of whether they've been able to find any parts of the plane, what exactly has happened, etc. And while we're getting you those images, we're also constantly in touch with authorities on the ground to get you a comprehensive idea of what's happening as far as the rescue operations itself are concerned. The search mission right now is very, very challenging, because if you look at the kind of terrain, I showed that to our viewers also earlier. Jomsom airport is literally in the midst, in the lap of the Himalayas, and there are peaks all around. It's very challenging terrain to fly by, which is why extremely experienced pilots who know the area very well are the only ones who can fly there. Add to that is the fact that there is inclement weather also that was reported early this morning. Right now, it's kind of cleared up. It's still, clouded, as you can see there in the footage as well. Choppers have been deployed across the area, but this is possibly the crash site. And the reason we're still kind of putting it out with a hint of doubt is because we don't want to confirm anything till we get that final word from the authorities, understanding the sensitivity of the situation on the ground and the scale of what we're talking about here. 22 people on board that particular plane. We're all, of course, keeping our fingers crossed that there are survivors. In all likelihood, it definitely looks like a crash, but army personnel are on the ground. They're now going by foot as well to ensure that they can find any hint, any clue as to exactly where this plane is. We also spoke to the spokesperson of the airline involved in this, Tara Air. The plane was a Tara Air flight. Here's what the representative of the airline said.
The two chopper helicopter came back to Pokhara and Jomsom. The weather is not so good, and from land there is 3 teams one from Tara Air, from Nepal Army, Nepal Prairie, is going to possible crash site.
Have you been able to trace and locate the possible crash site?
Maybe our B2 track last locator is Lete Pass area, Lete.
Okay.
Lete Pass area. That's why we are going to search over there.
Is it because you're calling it a crash site, sir? I want to ask you, have you been able to confirm that the aircraft has crashed?
Not yet. It's missing. It's only missing. Not found in crash or not. It's not found yet.
Can you tell us more about the passengers, sir? Who were the passengers who were on board? Were they all Nepalese nationals, or were there foreign nationals on board as well?
There is 19 passengers. There are 2 passengers from Germany and 4 passengers from India, and rest 13 passengers is Nepalese passengers.
Okay, so that's a conversation that my colleague Polumi had there with Tara Air spokesperson, who's confirmed the passengers who are on board. He's referring to this as a crash site. But that specific question from Polemy on whether it's been confirmed to be a crash, he doesn't commit to that yet. But officials, authorities clearly fearing that this would be a crash for obvious reasons because of the terrain and the fact that the aircraft very suddenly lost contact. And the kind of circumstances that we've seen with the kind of information that we have, unfortunately, it does seem like a crash. But we can only hope and pray that there were survivors in this kind of an incident. But in the last many years, whenever there's been this kind of a disaster that's played out in the Himalayas, in Nepal, and unfortunately there have been many of these, there haven't been survivors. But let's hope and pray that for all of those people who are on board that particular aircraft. We're going to track the story very closely here on India Today and get you all the latest updates.